everyone. As part of my cross-country tour series, we are excited to have former NHLer and current analyst for Sportsnet, Garry Galley. Let's go!
How are we doing? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. You've got a long haul you got going here now. How was it this morning with the Sens?
It was great. I'm in the same room as I was when I interviewed them, so that's why I have a Sens logo behind me.
Oh, I thought maybe they signed you or something. I thought you were ready to go. You getting the lay of the land now? You getting good at this stuff?
I'm getting used to it. I'm loving it. It's great. I think that this is great. So yeah, I really am loving it. I'm used to it.
Awesome. How's your dad?
He's good.
Yeah, there's a lot of memories from when I was just a young lad, younger than you. So we had quite the crew there.
Yeah.
Back in the park. So, it's amazing we're all still alive. Most of us anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fire away, young man.
All right. So I'm just going to ask you a couple of questions, and then I'm going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Good to go.
Okay. So what was it like playing in minor hockey in Ottawa?
You know what? I started my minor hockey back in Greenfield Park, St. Lambert, St. Hubert area when I was younger. And unfortunately, we didn't have a lot of indoor facilities back then. I think Greenfield Park had an arena, but in St. Hubert, where I started growing up, we used to play on an outdoor rink, my minor hockey. So I have pictures of my minor hockey teams that I played on when I was fairly young, and I'm wearing mittens. I don't even wear hockey gloves because it's too cold to wear hockey gloves. So we had mittens on, and we had, dressed a little differently. We had little earmuffs underneath our helmets and stuff. So parents dressed us accordingly. But at a certain point in my life, I think I was in grade 6, grade 7, my parents moved up to Ottawa. And of course, just being as young as I was, I came along with them, and minor hockey took off for me to a whole new level. I got a chance to really absorb a level of hockey that I hadn't been accustomed to. So I had to really go down a few notches to find where I could fit in. And then luckily and eventually I was able to work my way back up. By the time I hit my last year of midget, I never really played at the highest level in minor hockey till my last year of midget. And then finally I played at that year, and it was fun. It was great. A lot of friends that I have back in Ottawa, I met through minor hockey.
That's great. And you studied at Bowling Green University. Why did you choose that path instead of the CHL?
It's the only offer I had.
Oh, yeah?
Well, the truth of it was I was drafted by the Kingston Canadians in the 16th round, 222nd overall. So I wasn't like somebody that was really on their radar. I wasn't somebody that probably was going to make the team. And Zander, as stubborn as a lot of athletes are, is I thought down here as a 16, 17-year-old. And on my first shift of the scrimmage, I got hit into the boards, and I got hurt. And I got to the bench. I couldn't get my breath. And eventually, a guy by the name of Mike Stothers, who now is the assistant coach in Anaheim, he was sitting beside me. He was my defense partner. And he said, to the trainer, you got to come look at this kid. He's not doing so good. Trainer came over. I couldn't catch my breath back. Usually when you get the wind knocked out of you, you lose your breath. I couldn't get my breath back. So they took me off the ice. They sent me to the hospital, and then ended up I nearly ruptured my spleen. So my spleen was enlarged to 3 times its size almost, because I had mononucleosis. I was suffering from mono. I didn't know I had it because I was in such good shape and ready in training. I didn't know I had it. And then the spleen was enlarged. So when the contact hit me, so I got sent home. And when I got sent home, I didn't violate the 48 hours in a junior camp that would have negated my scholarship at Bowling Green, or any scholarship. Because once you played 48 hours in a junior camp, you weren't allowed to go to college. So I luckily got hurt in the first shift. So I came back home and played Central Junior Hockey with the Gloucester Rangers. Had a great year that year. We went to the finals of the playdowns to the Centennial Cup. And at that point, believe it or not, a boy at Bowling Green, a defenseman at Bowling Green, had lost his father and had to go back home to Saskatchewan and couldn't play the next year. He was a freshman that year. So a scholarship opened up at Bowling Green, and they came down to see me play. And that's how it all fell together. So I really didn't have a lot of options. I wasn't on a lot of people's radars. But at the end of the day, I ended up in a really great situation at Bowling Green.
Yeah, of course. And so you drafted to LA. What was it like moving from Bowling Green to a town like LA? And was there a big adjustment for a 21-year-old?
Absolutely, it was. I went from a program playing 40 games a year to an NHL team playing a hard schedule. We practiced 4 days a week. We played on the weekends at Bowling Green. I went to a team that was playing more hockey more often, and I think I was doing really great till about the 40 game mark. And then I started to get worn down a little bit. My game started to deteriorate. And I think Pat Quinn at the time said, he felt like it's because I was a college player that I wasn't used to the rigors of the National Hockey League. So it took me a little bit to adjust, but I was very fortunate. I was able to go to a team that was looking for an offensive defenseman. They were looking for somebody just like me because they were playing in a division with the Edmonton Oilers and Winnipeg Jets, Calgary Flames. This was a high octane running offensive division. So someone like me coming out of college, putting up the kind of numbers that I did in college, they were like, this is guy perfect. So they brought me in, and I didn't have to go to the minors or anything like that. I came right in and made the team in my first year. So it was great. I mean, as a boy dreaming of playing in the National Hockey League, you never really quite ready for it when it actually happens because you don't think it's real. You don't think it's going to happen. So, nowadays kids have every draft list. They can get on a computer and pick up where they sit in the draft or where they are as far as, what teams are interested in them. Back then, we didn't know anything. We just played hockey and hoped for the best. And, I went to a really good program at Bowling Green, played for a really good coach in Jerry York, and just things just kind of took off. And, my freshman year, Brian McClellan, who's the general manager of the Washington Capitals, and George McPhee, who was president of the Las Vegas Golden Knights, those two guys were my co-captains that year at Bowling Green. And we had a chance to win the CCHA that year and go on and vie in the NCAAs. We lost to Northeastern, but in my freshman year, I learned a lot, and I was ready come my sophomore year. And I didn't get drafted as an 18-year-old. I got drafted as a 20-year-old, which is very odd.
Right.
So I was very fortunate. A lot of, and the story that I'm telling you, Zander, and the story you're hearing is that I certainly was the road less traveled. I wasn't the one that everyone would expect. So I had a lot of good fortune and a lot of blessing on my side, for sure.
So in 1990, you made it to the Stanley Cup Finals. Unfortunately, it was against one of the best teams in NHL history. People say it was the toughest trophy to win. What was that run like?
It was incredible. I played 17 years, and that run with the Bruins was the highlight of my career. And I played for Team Canada a couple times. I played in a couple All-Star games, but that run was special. A special group of guys. Boston had been to the finals a couple years before that and lost to Edmonton as well. But that's when Gretzky was there. The year that I lost to them, Gretzky had left for LA. Messier was the captain, and they were coming along in the West. We were eating up the East. We swept Washington in 4 to get to the finals. We felt really good about ourselves. But sometimes momentum is a huge part of sports, right? One team starts to get going, and another team just can't seem to do anything right, and the other team can't seem to do anything wrong. And what happened was in game 1 of that series against Edmonton, it was a triple overtime game. We had many of opportunities to win the game in overtime. Bill Ranford was incredible. Glenn Wesley missed a wide open net in the second overtime. And in the third overtime, Peter Klima scores for Edmonton. And they beat us in game 1. And a lot of players had to be really used a lot. The building was warm. We had a lot of players that had lost a lot of fluids, had to go to the hospital, get intravenous to try to get their fluids back in them. And we really never, we got going in game 2. We were out shooting Edmonton 24-3 or something like that, but we were losing 2-1. And we just never seemed to get back on track again. We just never seemed to, we lost our mojo sort of thing. And as a player, it's the hardest thing to do is to feel that slipping away. It's something that's so important to you. But Edmonton certainly really turned it on. Brantford won the Conn Smythe. He was incredible. The kid line, which was their rookie line, was Jelena, Graves, and Murphy. And they were insanely good in that series. I remember how hard they were to play against this young line. And of course, Adam Graves' number is retired in Madison Square Garden. He won a cup with the Rangers, and Jelena had an incredible career, and Murphy as well. So you go back and you lose to a team and you got to tip your hat to them, but it stung a lot. I do feel like if we would have been victorious in game 1, maybe the momentum falls the other way. But it just seemed like game 1 really dictated that final, and I never really got a chance. And many veteran players will tell you, take advantage of your chances because they don't come along very often. And they were right. The following year, we went to the semifinals and had Pittsburgh down 2-0. Minnesota was coming on the other side, and we had a really good record with Minnesota. And we had Pittsburgh down 2-0. And we got to Pittsburgh for game 3, and Pittsburgh was just shooting off their mouths in the paper saying that they weren't nervous. They weren't scared about losing the series. They felt they were going to win the series. And we kind of thought, this is a pretty cocky group of guys. But they thumped us 4 straight, and they knew they were the type of team that they were, and the success that they had, the 2 cups they won. We just weren't a strong enough team then. But great runs, great memories, and a lot of pain. I'll tell you.
So, speaking of great memories, you had a very successful rookie season with the Kings. Do you think coming into the league at 21 after university, opposed to 18 out of the CHL, helped with that transition?
Certainly being older and more mature, stronger as a human being, just being stronger. When you get to the National Hockey League, a lot of these young guys that come in now at 18 and 19, they're playing against, it's like boys and men, and it's really tough, and you got to be so talented to do that. That's why you don't see it a lot. College is also, it's one of those things where you're coming out at 21, and a lot of the really good players come out early, right? They come out after a year or so at school. But for someone who plays the guy came out after my junior year. I never went back to my senior year. So I left after we won the national championship in '84 and signed with LA. But if you come out of college after a 4-year program, an NHL team has to evaluate you at the age of 21 or 22 versus a draft choice at the age of 18. So they say, well, is this kid at 18, what's he going to look like at 22? So when we have only a certain number of defensemen or forwards we can keep in our stall for contracts, sometimes the players get tossed aside because they can only have, 14 defensemen in their stall. So they go, okay, these are our 14 defensemen. We got an 18-year-old kid and we got this 22-year-old kid coming out of college. We think the 18-year-old kid might be better than this kid at this point. So it can work for you. It can work against you sometimes. At the end of the day, I think it worked for me. When I got to Bowling Green, I weighed 170 pounds, and when I came out of Bowling Green, I was 185, 190, which back then a 6 foot, 190 pound defenseman was a decent size in 1984. When I retired in 2001, I was on the blue line with Zdeno Chara. And every defenseman on my team was over 6'2", and Chara was 6'9", and I was 6 feet. I was 200 pounds at the time. But my kids were young then. My 2 oldest ones, and they told my wife, they said, "Dad's going to get killed out there. Look at the size of these guys." And that just shows you how the game has changed over 17 years that I was in it. As the players got bigger, stronger, faster, and the skill set levels are honed quite a bit more now.
You had several recognitions throughout your career, including an NCAA All-American and 2 All-Star games. Is there one that stands out for you?
I think personal stuff is always great. It's nice to be recognized. I mean, certainly it makes you feel good. It gives you more confidence. But the things that I always really cherished was the team successes that we had, like going to the finals with the Bruins, winning a national championship in 1984 in quadruple overtime in Lake Placid against Minnesota Duluth. A raucous 9,000 seat building just going crazy as we hit the fourth overtime and winning that game. And those group of guys, we're like brothers the rest of our life now. We had our 35th anniversary a couple of years ago of the national championship team. Everyone's there. It's like we never left. It's like when you win a cup. When you win a cup with a group of guys, you walk together with those people the rest of your life. That's how important it is to you. So individual awards, like being an All-American, I wouldn't have been an All-American if it wasn't for my defense partner, Dave Ellett, who was, should have been almost an All-American himself, had a great career in the National Hockey League, and the players that I played with. The All-Star game also was a reflection of my teammates and the guys I play with. I just happened to be, the guy that was singled out a couple of times and felt very, very fortunate. It's nice to go to an All-Star game and hobnob with the Gretzky's and the, and the Messiers and all the star players in the game. It's kind of, growing up to be able to sit down. My first All-Star game, Zander, I sat beside Guy Lafleur, okay, in the locker room. He was a captain's pick. He was a veteran player that wasn't selected in the process, but they brought him in. It was in Chicago and at Chicago Stadium. And I had a chance to sit in the dressing room with Guy Lafleur, Paul Coffey, Patrick Waugh, guys like that, and Ray Bourque. And it meant a lot to me. So those things do mean a lot to me, but I will tell you that the team successes and the things that you do as a team, they're just that much more.
So you said earlier that the game has changed a lot. As someone who studies the game and watches so much hockey, what are some of the biggest changes you've noticed?
Well, certainly the ability to dump the puck into the zone offside and have people tag up, that changes a lot of things. When I broke into the National Hockey League in 1984, when a puck got dumped out of the zone, you had to backpedal. You had to know how to backpedal, reverse the puck until your players got out of the zone. You couldn't deliberately throw a puck in. So now you can do that. So the skill level for a defenseman having to back up and do things has changed a little bit. No red line. Therefore, pucks can be passed longer distances, which means the ice gets spread out a little bit more. And the game becomes more north-south than it does east-west, where passing and trying to break through the trap in the neutral zone, took a lot of east-west movement, where now pucks can be launched 2-3 zones ahead, tipped into a zone, chased down. The sheer speed of the game, the players, we were girthier athletes. We were thicker, bigger, girthier. The players now are leaner. They're scientific workouts. They're honed in to create speed and transition. And without the red line and to be able to dump pucks in and attack, now the velocity and of the hits that are happening on defensemen and the end boards are more occurring. It's more dangerous. The game is very, very quick. Sometimes it's almost too fast because it can get dangerous at times. But we were brought up to be a team player, fit in as a team, doing extra things were deemed to have been showboating or whatever. Now you see a guy like Zegras, and you see guys do these things, and they're basically urged to be creative, urged to do these things. Like, man, I love it. I love the personality of some of these guys that have come in. Alexander Ovechkin was a big part of that. Seeing the guys now go out and really be creative and do very interesting things, and you can't negate the fact that these kids are super talented. The unfortunate thing, and I'd be remiss without saying this, is that I grew up playing football, baseball, hockey, soccer. I played all the sports with my friends and around. Now, in order to play in the National Hockey League or play a professional soccer league or baseball league, you have to hone in on your sport fairly early in your age, and you have to do it all year round in order to be strong enough at that. And I find a lot of times that's a real positive in some areas because you see these incredible players, but as an overall athlete, I find that you miss something when you don't play other sports. And you look at the number of guys who played lacrosse and now play hockey that are incredible. John Tavares with the hands and what they're doing with these pucks now has a lot to do with lacrosse and some of these guys that played. So that's the one thing I think has changed a lot.
So you played over 1,100 games, which congrats, by the way,
Thank you.
in the NHL. How did that experience help you with your transition from the ice to the booth?
I've always been I've been really fortunate to play that long. I never thought I'd play that long. When I first broke in, people told me, if you can play 10 years, that'd be something. So to be able to play, 17 years and really enjoy longevity in a career is a credit to any player who plays 1,000 games or whatever. It's a credit to your consistency. You have to be consistent in order to play a length of time. You can't just come in 1 or 2 years and play well and then not. You have to be someone who's consistent. So that's a compliment to consistency, which I took very seriously. So being somebody who worked at that every year, trained every summer, came into camp in good shape, really did all the things necessary. Those are building blocks, not just for hockey, but hockey has taught me how to live my life in general. My family, some of the hardest things in my life that I've gone through, Zander, I've gone through having hockey as something to go back on and find answers within. So even though I'm not playing anymore, hockey is still in me, and it helps me move forward. And it helped me move forward into my second career, which started in radio. I was doing a morning show here in Ottawa, a Team 1200 sports show. Then I moved into an afternoon show, and then all of a sudden, I got a call from a TV company that said, "Hey, we could use someone. We're in a bit of a bind. Can you help us out?" So I did. It worked out, and then next thing you know, a few years go by, and CBC comes along, and you're on Hockey Night in Canada, which is like, as a player playing in the NHL is one thing, and then as a broadcaster being on Hockey Night in Canada on a Saturday night is like, it's like a religion almost. It's like that's something, and having a chance to work with Bob Cole, the legendary Bob Cole, was insane. To hear his voice right beside me and be part of a broadcast team with him. And the people at Rogers Sportsnet that I work with that helped me. When I started in broadcasting, I was just like some young guy in minor hockey. I mean, I was making lots of mistakes and I was trying to find my craft. But because you have good people surrounding you, and that's like in anything, you have good people surrounding you, they help you. And the help I got from a lot of people that helped me along the way helped me to become a good broadcaster, and it's given me longevity in broadcasting. So I'm almost 20 years in media. Which is more than I was playing hockey. So I've been very fortunate to be able to segue from hockey into something that I love, as well. A lot of players that come out of the National Hockey League have a hard time segueing into something that they really like, because, losing hockey is almost like a funeral for a friend. You lose something that's such an intricate fabric of your being that it takes a long time to get over that. And not having competition, not being able to compete, not being able to have camaraderie with all your teammates, that's a big loss in your life when you finish hockey. So to be able to go right into radio and television and have something that I could put my competitive juices out with and try to be a good broadcaster and talk about the game, it's really helped me in my second part of my journey in my life.
And just to say something, only 357 people played over 1,000 games, which is crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I know. I think I was the 100 and I want to say I can't recall, maybe 135th. I think I was at the time. Yeah, the guys in LA that I was playing with, Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille, and those guys in LA, they got together and with the teammates, they bought me a watch, and on the back of my watch it has the 135th player to play 1,000 games, and it has some nice inscription on it and whatever. I still have the watch. Obviously, I'll have it forever. Pass it on to my kids. But yeah, it was amazing. My mom and dad had never been on a plane before, and have them get on a plane from Ottawa and fly to Los Angeles for the ceremony. It was really incredible. It was common. You don't think it's as big a thing until it actually is in front of you.
Yeah.
And then it was big, and I really cherished it. And my wife, when the game was played in Philadelphia, my 1,000th game. So I still have my 2 sticks that I played that game with. I wore a different sweater in the warm up, first period, second period, third period, different sweater. In the sweater, the trainer stitched my name and the 1,000th game and the date. And then the sweaters were all mixed up. And then I took a sweater and I gave a sweater to each of my 3 children. So none of us know which one was worn in the warm-up. But so somebody's wearing a sweater that just got worn in the warm-up, and the other 3 were game worn, but no one knows which one it is. So it was nice to be able to give that to my kids. I landed from Philadelphia into LA, and when I got home, my wife had 1,000 roses in vases. Yeah, all in the front of the house. And
Cool.
it was cool. So the players in the league heard about it, so they were making fun of me during games later on. But it was well worth it. Yeah, no, and to be totally honest with you, you can't play 1,000 games without having a companion beside you that, like my wife Terry Lynn, who goes through every up and down that you go through with, is there to take time for you to get the rest and the things that you need and the nutrition and all those things that you need to move forward. To be traded 5-6 times, or not traded, but move free agent, be traded on 6 different teams, and have to navigate children to new schools, new doctors, new dentists, new banks, new everything. And she did that with the utmost class and dignity. And without her, I could never have done this, for sure. And my kids too. You know, Dad's not always around. Dad missed birthdays. Dad's missed Thanksgivings. You know, Dad's missed a lot of things in playing in the National Hockey League. And for my kids to not have their dad as much as they would like to is a huge sacrifice. So I give a lot of credit to my 3 children too, who had to sacrifice, and they did it without complaining ever. So I was very fortunate. So
what do you enjoy most about what you do as an analyst for sport with Sportsnet?
I don't love the travel. Travel is not my favorite, but I love breaking down the game. You know, I coached for a few years in Central Junior here in Ottawa. I thoroughly loved coaching, teaching. I taught defense camps for 8 years when I retired. You know, I was busier when I retired than I was. I was doing radio, television, hockey camps. I was doing all kinds of stuff, and being able to teach and help young kids and help them develop was a passion of mine for quite a long period of time. And then when broadcasting came along and it just took up so much of my time, it was hard, but I love breaking down the game. I love analyzing what just happened in front of you so that I can paint a picture for the people watching at home, and without using all the difficult hockey jargon and dressing it up to sound really intricate when it's not. Try to be as simple with it and educational with it as you can. Break it down, and when I leave the booth, I like to know that I felt like I've painted the picture for the person at home with some enthusiasm and excitement, because I'm enthused at the game still. When the puck drops and the energy's moving and everything's going on, I mean, you're just feel like it. And when I got the opportunity to go down between the benches, it swelled up even more. Now I'm down and I hear the noises and I smell the things that I smell down at the ice surface, and all your receptors are firing off. And even though you're not playing, you know, you're having little conversations with the players and referees, and, you know, the players, you can hear the tapping of their feet. Like, there's so many little things that just bring back everything that I'm very fortunate to still be around the game, you know, to be around it as long as I have been and have it to be a big part of my life. I'm very, very blessed.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to rapid fire questions.
All right.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. What NHL press box provides the best vantage point to call a game?
Bell Center.
Who is the most exciting player to watch in the NHL?
Right now?
Yeah, or all of the time that.
Right now, I mean, Connor McDavid as a forward, can't say enough. As much as I love Sidney Crosby, but right now, the electrifying Connor McDavid, Cale Makar on the back end, I just enjoy watching him so much. Overall, in my whole career, obviously Bobby Orr was my favorite. I grew up idolizing Bobby Orr. I had a chance to meet Bobby in Boston on many occasions, and I can't say enough about when you have somebody you idolize growing up, when you meet them, they're everything that you thought they were going to be, and then some. Bobby's just a great guy and has always been so nice to me. So that's really my headliner. But, to play, Ray Bourque, to me, is somebody who's just impressed me so much. His leadership and everything. I go back to, Rob Blake and Luc Robitaille, such great players. But, Gretzky and Lemieux, it's hard to ignore how incredible and how much those guys transitioned the game to where it is today. And so, Gretzky and Lemieux to me are the two guys that I have to say, having had a chance to play against them is just something that I'll treasure the rest of my life. And playing in some of the old buildings, Zander, that are gone now. I had a chance to play in the Montreal Forum. I had a chance to play in Maple Leaf Gardens. I had a chance to play in some of these Chicago Stadium and the Auden Buffalo and, the Spectrum in Philadelphia. Like, it's just, these were not cookie cutter arenas. These all had their little niches and nuances that you had to learn. You knew how to bounce the puck off the wall at the Forum on the lower bottom board, baseboard because it had more jump to it. The top boards were a little more dead. You knew how to angle things. Like, it's the buildings. Now you go into every building and they're designed almost exactly the same. And so it's a little bit different. But I was really lucky to be able to play in all those buildings that I grew up, watching.
Watching, yeah.
Yeah.
What is the one rule you would like to change? You would like the league to review?
Oh, wow. I think penalties should be played to their entirety. I don't think you should be able to get scored on and then come out of the box. I think penalties should be, played out to their entirety, and you shouldn't be able to ice the puck while you're shorthanded.
What rule are you happiest they changed from when you played the game?
Oh boy. I would say, I think taking the red line out has really changed a lot of teams from going into that ultra mode trap that was going on for so long. I mean, the trap was a way the New Jersey Devils won Stanley Cups. I mean, the Montreal Canadiens, believe it or not, in all their years were a trap team in the neutral zone. So it was a way to do that. By removing the red line, it's tough for teams to be able to trap, and it makes it a more exciting and more quicker game. And that's what we've seen as the red line disappeared. So I think I'm glad that happened, because the type of player I was, I think that would have made a huge difference if it had been gone for the majority of my career. It would have made a big difference in the way the game is played now, for sure. I mean, I feel like I would have really welcomed the way the game is now and the way they activate defensemen into the offense, the way defensemen become part of the offense, how they're down in the offensive zone. That's the way I played coming out of college. But then when I got to the National Hockey League, it was you kind of get bridled a little bit. They don't want you doing that. They want you to just pick at your spots, but play defense, back off. And sometimes they change people around. But, I like to see the defense getting let loose like they do now.
Who had the hardest shot you have ever faced? And did you ever think twice about stepping in front of it?
Al McInnes. He could really bring it. I mean, Zdeno Chara I played with, and I know Zdeno has one of the hardest shots in history. But, I didn't get hit in the backside by that one. Al McInnes hit me one time right in the butt. I mean, right in the right butt cheek. And it left a complete circle of the puck on my backside. I was wrestling with someone in front of the net, and he hit me with that thing. And I'm telling you, I knew Al could fire it, but I mean, that was something. I mean, I look at the guys in my time, Dougie Wilson could really fire a puck, and then you look at a guy like Al McInnes. I mean, no one fired it harder than Al. And then Al Ifredi came along. He could really, blow the biscuit up. And then now, of course, the guys that are in the game now, you look at how hard some of these guys fire the puck. And, Dustin Byfuglien and Zdeno Chara. I mean, Shea Weber. I mean, these guys, this thing is really humming now.
What was your most memorable goal?
Oh, boy. My first one is all obviously memorable. My first NHL goal against Richard Brodeur in Vancouver. I'll never forget it. I can still visually see it. Still have the puck sitting in my office that was given to me. But I scored an overtime goal in playoffs against Patrick Waugh in Montreal, Game 2 in that 1990 season. We went to the finals. My daughter had just been born days before. My first child, Shaylin. So to be able to score an overtime game-winning goal put us up 2-0 in the series. We went on to eventually beat Montreal in 5, and then move on to play Washington and then on to the Cup final. It was a big thrill for me. Being a Bruin was a big thrill for me, and being accepted by the Bruins fans as a real Bruin has always been something I've cherished, because being a Bruin is something, and it still is something. When you see the guys who play for the Bruins now, the Bergerons and the Marchands, and these guys, to be a Bruin is special. And so that's something that I remembered scoring the goal, and I lost my stick in the process because guys were grabbing onto me, and I got over to the sideboards and I had my hands up in the air, and the fans, they reached over the glass, and I remember they were grabbing me and my feet were almost coming off the ice.
Really?
As I could see all my teammates coming towards me, and seeing is that they were so happy for me. And that was a moment that, certainly I cherish. And I know these are rapid fire questions, but that goal that I scored brought back a lot of memories to a lot of people of the goal Bobby Orr scored against St. Louis to win the Stanley Cup, the famous May 10th goal. It was a very same type of play, and Harry Sinden at the time, the general manager, said it brought back a flashback. I got the puck at the blue line, I pinched in like Orr did, I threw it down to Craig Janney, he threw it down to Derek Sanderson, Orr went to the net, I went to the net, it was a return pass, and then the puck went into the net. Or, of course, went vertical or horizontal into the air and won a Stanley Cup. This was game 2 of this round 2, very different. But the next day in the Boston Globe, they had a picture of Bobby's goal and a picture of my goal. And they said that they went through the similarities of it all. Bobby actually called me to say, stop stealing my glory. I only got so much. He was such a nice guy. But I have that article hard mounted in my office as well, because anytime you could be put in the same conversation with your idol and someone you really cherish, it's something you never forget. So that goal was something that I think was one of the biggest goals in my career.
Who was the toughest player you had to contain in front of the net?
Oh, Tim Kerr. Do you remember? I don't know. You wouldn't remember Tim Kerr, Zander, but your dad probably would. Tim was a mountain. He was a big man, wide, just wide. And I think he has the record for most power play goals scored in a year. I want to say it's over 30. He was insane. I remember trying to cross-check him, because cross-checking back then in front of the net was something that you could get away with. Yeah. I remember trying to cross-check him, and when I went to cross-check him, my stick broke over his back. And really? He turned around and looked at me. And the only thing I could think of was to say sorry. I go, hey, sorry. And it was during the play. But it was like a mosquito landing on an elephant. He was a tough guy to move. Dave Anderchuk was another guy that was extremely tough to move in front of the net. Eric Lindros, extremely tough to move. And these are big men, right? And so you got to find leverage, and you have to find other ways to be able to, because if you just wrestle and fight with them, you're going to lose every time. So you got to use different tools in order to try to stop them from deflecting and getting rebounds and things like that.
The NHL had some legendary broadcasters. Which former broadcaster would you have most wanted to call a game with? Oh boy, I guess Danny Gallivan. I had the pleasure of doing a game with Bob Cole, many games with Bob Cole. I was very fortunate. So to do a game with Danny Gallivan and just to hear him, go through his, incredible verbiage that he used during the games, that's something that I think would be pretty cool. And last question, what is the one piece of advice you could give a kid like my age about chasing their dreams?
Well, I think anytime you chase your dream, there's always going to have to be sacrifices that have to be made. And as important your dream is to you, is important the sacrifices that you make, and that no dream is too big. I mean, dream big. You're supposed to dream big, and not every dream will come true. But it's okay. Sometimes the path towards the dream is as important as the dream itself. And for me, I lived my dream of playing in the National Hockey League. It came to fruition. It came through a lot of sacrifice and hard work. And, there's a lot of days when things were going on that I would rather be doing is being in the gym or being on a track, but it was 100 degrees outside or whatever, missing things that you'd like to be at, going to concerts with your friends, all the things that you sacrifice do means something. And some people say, well, what happens if you don't happen? Well, again, you've built all kinds of wonderful things into your fabric of who you are by chasing your dreams. So that would be the advice that I would give.
That's awesome. So thank you for joining my podcast. It was an honor having you on, and I had a lot of fun. And yeah, it was a great interview.
All right. Well, awesome. And good luck with you, and good luck with your the rest of your cross National Hockey League, cross Canada broadcast. And I think it's an awesome thing that you're doing. And I wish you great health, and I hope your dreams come true for you. And give your dad a hug for me, and your uncle when you see him, and pass on my love. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right, bud. Stay in touch.
Yeah. See ya.
Okay.